from a non-abusive parent. Why would judges make that order?
Judges
That isn't what the courts are doing. Your research is absolutely skewed, and you're wanting to give the viewers the absolutely ridiculous idea that somehow judges are prejudiced towards fathers. Any single court of law wishes to have parents kept together if the child grew up with two non-abusive parents. The reason why children are kept away from some parents is because of a danger to them.
I'd love to see male victims of domestic violence receive the same care and assistance that female victims do. I'd like to see cases of common couple violence. Remember, they're typically reciprocal and usually sporadic or temporary. Be treated through counseling rather than sort of an enforcement of permanent family separation. I'd like to see men with children have better options than 1, risk a kidnapping charge, 2, leave the kids alone with a violent woman, or 3, stay and swallow the abuse. I'd like to see men who call the police for help have a better chance of being helped than arrested, instead of the other way around, like it is now. So, all of you feminists who complain that all MRAs do is attack feminism, you tell me, right? Just tell me, how do I make these things happen without attacking feminism? You know, the ideology that applied patriarchy theory to domestic violence came up with the Duluth model, wrote it into law and policy, and now zealously guards it from any criticism. How do I convince lawmakers and bureaucrats and directors of agencies to abandon a model built on the ideologies of feminism without ever mentioning the word feminism, without ever uttering the words, feminists got it wrong? Moreover, given the scads of evidence that domestic violence is not significantly gendered, why should I avoid attacking feminism? In light of all that evidence, feminism's clinging to Duluth is really an unjustifiable slandering of men, masculinity, and traditional norms. Now, when Erin Pizzey first began talking publicly about violent women and the true nature of domestic violence, she was protested by feminists, and picketed by feminists, and threatened by feminists. Her charity was subject to a hostile takeover by feminists. She ended up having to have a police escort everywhere she went, and she was instructed to have all her mail redirected to the bomb unit. When her family dog was shot, she finally fled the UK and ended up living in hiding in the US for more than 10 years. That was how difficult the feminist establishment made her life, merely for saying women can be violent too. Now, all of that was the result of feminists practicing feminism. Pizzey was a heretic speaking inconvenient truths, the most inconvenient one being that women can be just as shitty, brutal, violent, and abusive as men can within their family relationships. Now, what does it say about feminism's attitude toward men, that the mere assertion that men are no more flawed than women are, that men are no more prone to subhuman beastly behavior than women are, that men are not uniquely monstrous compared to women, at least in this way, that this could provoke a campaign of abuse and threats that left a philanthropic woman who'd devoted her entire life to helping victims of violence, living in exile out of fear for not just her life, but those of her children and her grandchildren? What does it say about feminist theories that terrorism, malfeasance, and denial of evidence is required to protect and preserve them? What does it say about feminists that even when they were shown the evidence over and over again, they maintained their belief that the earth was 6,000 years old and redoubled their commitment to write that belief into law and policy, even adjusting law and policy to reflect their beliefs rather than reality? Because, you know, if they acknowledged the evidence that the earth isn't 6,000 years old, they might have to question their belief in the rest of the scripture. And we can't have that, can we? If domestic violence isn't patriarchal terrorism, then maybe the patriarchy theory they used to construct that model isn't all it's cracked up to be. Now, as far as I'm concerned, anyone can call themselves a feminist. No skin off my nose. But if any of you think that MRAs can make 1 ounce of difference for marginalized and victimized men without criticizing and dismantling feminism and its pet theories, I'm just going to ask you, show me an alternative. Show me how else to do it. How do we get Duluth out of our legislation and policy without saying feminists got it wrong? How do we prove they got it wrong without pointing out all of that suppressed evidence and how it was suppressed? Decades of evidence of female intimate partner violence. That feminists have suppressed it by failing to acknowledge it in their own research and intimidating and blacklisting researchers who do publish data on it. How do we keep that guy out of jail when he calls police for help without questioning the feminist assumptions upon which arrest policies have been formed, namely gender profiling rather than who was actually being abusive? And how do we get our message out without antagonizing feminists when it is the message itself that antagonizes them? So you tell me, feminists, moderate, wonderful, egalitarian feminists, I can wait, right? I mean, all those male victims, they've already been waiting 4 decades, right? They can wait a little longer for the answer. And frankly, even for those mostly younger feminists who don't guard the Duluth model out of cognitive dissonance or their own sunken costs or their personal identity issues, and who can and do acknowledge the reality of the domestic violence problem, well, that's all fine and dandy, but ultimately it's useless. I mean, who cares what Joe Feminist Six-Pack or Jane Feminist Appletini think? Duluth is entrenched. It's written into law, policy, training materials, and public awareness efforts. Old school feminists, like those who booted Erin Pitsey from her charity and chased her out of her own country over ideological differences, they are the ones who have a stranglehold on what has become a multi-billion-dollar government-funded industry. Different laws and policies can't be implemented without throwing out the old ones. And throwing out the old ones isn't going to happen without effectively debunking them. If the Duluth model is feminist theory based on feminism's grand unifying theory of the patriarchy, then that means we need to debunk that feminist theory in whole or in part. And there is just no way to do that without ever criticizing feminism. And even if there were no feminists standing in our way, right, or sending us bomb threats or trying to destroy our careers while screaming misogynist at anyone who questions Duluth, blocking attempts to bring attention to the real nature of things, which there are. The crux of the matter is that Duluth is a feminist model based on broader and more encompassing feminist theories that attempt to explain the nature of sexual relations in society in their entirety. There's simply no way to explain that Duluth is bunk without explaining why it is bunk. And there's no way to do that without subjecting feminist ideas to vigorous scrutiny and challenge. And what feminists who complain that MRAs do nothing but attack feminism are really demanding would be like demanding Galileo promote the heliocentric model without ever criticizing the deeply entrenched state and church-sanctioned belief that the sun revolves around the earth, without ever saying the Vatican has it wrong, or this belief in a geocentric system is based on false dogmatic thinking on the part of religious leaders, or the church is wrong-headed and irresponsible in its doctrines and its teachings. Would you have asked Galileo to do that? To never say the Vatican is full of shit when it comes to geocentrism when promoting the truth of heliocentrism? And if so, how on earth do you think he was supposed to promote his idea? Supposed to say, my idea is correct, without ever uttering the words, and that idea is wrong. Now, I hope this explains things to those feminists who claim that MRAs spend too much time attacking feminism and not enough time actually helping men. When helping men means getting rid of feminist laws and policies, there is just no way to do it without attacking feminism. You just can't. And I guess that's it for me for the next little while. Hopefully next time I see you, I will have my new bathtub faucet and I'll be able to show it off to you. But other than that, I guess I will see you all later.